Hey everybody, Rachel Miner here. I thought it'd be fun to do my live in this cute hidden Disney treasure. My daughter's been painting all these by hand, and you can see she's still working on several of them. She's got like one or two squares left. Got some Mickey, we got some Yoda. So this is our hidden Mickey room, and it's been about a year and a half that she's been like working on these, and it'll be sad to see him go. So I thought, ooh, why not document it in the Disney room? So I wanted to talk today about fear. Last Friday was a swim day for me, and I was swimming in the pool, and I'm training for a triathlon. And as I was swimming, I was remembering my triathlon. That was about 2 summers ago. And my very first triathlon was like 10 years ago, and I didn't really train. I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was in Colorado in this reservoir, and I'm not a swimmer. My kids are swimmers. I am not a swimmer. So I put a wetsuit on and put a cap and goggles on, and I think that's the first time I'd ever put a cap and goggles on. And the way I got, and it was only like a quarter mile, like it was only just like a short distance. And I'm terrified of open water. So the race started, and I kind of and it was in waves. So I let the first wave go, and then I went, and then as waves would come after me, because I was so slow that like I would have these panic attacks as people would come by, because it would splash all this splash it everywhere, and like then you're getting water in your eyes and your nose. So I would stop. Every time they had a guy on a jet ski, a guy on a kayak, like I would stop, I would hold the side, catch my breath again, and I think I pretty much either doggy paddled or backstroked the whole race. And most people were in and out in like 4 to 6 minutes, and I knew there was a 30-minute cutoff timer. So I had to get out before 30 minutes. And so every time I would like stop and catch my breath, they'd be like, "Oh, do you want to get out?" And people would be like, "Yeah, get me out, I'm done." And I'm like, "No, I just have to keep going." And I would think of like, like Nemo and Dory, and just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And so I just kept doing it. And by the time I got done, I think I was one of the very last people out of the water that didn't get pulled out and quit. Because when I went to get my bike, there was like maybe only 3 bikes left on the rack, and those people had quit the race. So then I did like a 25-mile bike ride, and I didn't have a road bike, and I had a mountain bike, and I was very slow. It took me like 2.5 hours. And then my run was only like a 3K, and that's where, I shine. I love to run. And I came in last on the bike, and I loved the run because I spent the whole time just like cheering everybody else on. And the people that were at the end of the race with me were people that I literally thought they were going to have a heart attack. Like they looked like they were very ready to pass out. And so I would cheer on. I'd be like, "Hey, you guys, we can do this. We got this. We can finish it." People that didn't think they were going to finish either. And for me, it was just finishing. I didn't care that I came in last. I didn't care that I wasn't the top runner. I didn't care that they were shutting down the race before I even started the run. Like before I started the run, they're like, "Take down those tables, clean that up." They're like, "Leave 2 or 3 cups for the people that are still coming in." And I hadn't even started the race part. So I finished it, and I'm like, "I'm done. I'm never doing another one again." And then a few years later, I'm like, I could do this again. I could start training. I could learn how to swim. I can do it. So I started going to the pool. I started swimming. It took me about 2 months in flippers before I could get like down and back on my lap lane in the pool without assistance of those flippers, and to like start learning and start doing the techniques to do it. And I got to the point that I was swimming a good mile nonstop. And I'm like, I am so confident. I got this triathlon. I talked to a friend where we went and did one out in the Flaming Gorge in Wyoming. She's like, "I've done this one before. It's awesome. It's great." But They had always done the swim in a pool and then in this neighborhood. And this is the first time they had moved this race to the gorge. And she's like, it'll be good. There'll be support in the water. We're totally fine. So we got to the race. I felt so confident. I felt so confident that I was just going to crush this race. That I had swam. I knew I could swim a mile in the pool nonstop. I felt confident. I had been practicing. I had been, I even got a road bike. So like, I felt so confident. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I mean, this is going to be so exciting. And then I started swimming and the fear kicked in and I realized there was no support in this open water. She had one kayaker who went a longer distance for the people who were doing the Olympic distance, and I was doing a sprint. And then they had one person in the kids race, but they had nobody in the water for my distance, the sprint distance. And I had to go out to this buoy that was like a duck that was just floating in the water, so you couldn't even grab onto it or hold onto it or it would just sink. And fear kicked in and I had a panic attack. And I had a panic attack in the water. And I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack, but when you have a panic attack, you don't think clearly. And I started just not being able to swim. I couldn't put my face in. I couldn't breathe. I kept thinking I was going to die out there and that there was nobody there to save me. And in my mind, I'm like, well, just turn on your back and float on your back and you'll be fine, because I could backstroke, I could float on my back all day long. But every time I turned on my back, the fear would convince me that if I was floating on my back, I would be swimming in the wrong direction and I would be going out further and I would be going in the wrong direction. So the fear that I created in my mind like made the panic attack worse, and I would have to flip back over and start swimming, and I couldn't even like doggy paddle. Like that's how debilitating is the right word, this panic attack was. It was so debilitating, I can't even say the word, that I couldn't even doggy paddle. Like I could swim, I couldn't breathe. I was just like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And so I couldn't swim, I couldn't think of how to get to the shore. And I kept thinking, because the water was so murky, there was so much like algae and stuff growing in the water that it was dark. And in my mind, I was thinking, if I go down and Sean is watching me from the shore, even if he swam out here, he will have no idea where I went down because you couldn't see anything. Like visibility was no more than a foot. And so I thought, I'm going to go down and he's not even going to be able to find me out here because he won't know where I went down. He'll swim down there. He won't be able to find me. And I'm going to die out here in this reservoir. And at one point, I really thought I was going under. I'm like, this is it. Here I go. I'm going under. And I just couldn't handle it. And so I just kept doggy paddling. And I finally made it to the shore. And when I got to the shore, I just couldn't breathe. I'm like, I can't breathe. I laid on the ground. They ripped the wetsuit off of me. And I was like, okay, I can breathe now. And I took a moment and he's like, do you want to quit? I'm like, no, I can't quit. I gotta finish this race. And so after I was out of the water, like I was fine. And so I went on to finish, came in close to last again, got lost on the bike route. They had balloons that were supposed to tell you where to turn around, and had yellow and orange for the different distances and blue for the kids. And the lady got them confused at 4 a.m. because she couldn't tell the colors apart. So I could never find the turnaround, and they'd kind of like cleaned up again. And so finally I waved down this razor going by and I'm like, I can't find the turnaround. She's like, oh, you passed it like 2 miles ago. So I ended up doing like an extra 2 miles on my bike and then did the run, and Sean put his shoes on and ran with me. And so I was able to finish this run. And I was so disappointed in myself because I had created this fear in my mind that made it so that I didn't have a successful time on this race. And I was like, I was so prepared. And so what it did for me is it made me terrified to do another triathlon. It made me terrified to like go to open water again. And a couple of times, like, I've practiced in open water and like I'm still terrified. And so I realized, I'm like, okay, there was an event and there was this race and I was in this water and I had a panic attack and then I got out of the water and I was fine. But I have created this fear and attached emotion to what I went through. And if you realize that that is just an emotion you've attached to an event, it is not the event, then you can tell yourself a different story and you can detach that emotion. So I can like detach it and be like, okay, fear is not the race. The race itself was the race and I can do this again. So I'm signed up for another triathlon and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be smart about this. I'm going to start doing some in a pool instead of open water so that I can break that fear. And I can like get comfortable again and swimming in the water and comfortable with doing a race, that then I can move on to finishing a race and not coming in last all the time and feeling confident in the race. And then I can move forward with maybe doing open water again. So I've been going to the pool. And so long story short, or short story long, I guess, last Friday I was in the pool and I was swimming for my workout and the fear started to kick in. And I was like, what if this is another repeat? What if this is another, like, have a panic attack in the water again? And I thought, no, I'm going to change my story. I'm going to change my story right now because the fear is the story and the feelings I've attached to what happened. So I'm going to change my story. And as I swim, I envision myself just floating in water that is there from God with God's creations and that I'm safe and I'm fine and there's angels around me swimming with me that like help me along, and it's made me be able to get rid of that fear. And I've been able to like push it aside. And so as I was swimming and this fear was like kicking in, I was like, no, I'm changing my story. I'm changing it now. And so I was able to just change the story and finish swimming and being confident. And I every day I have to like change that story in my mind and be like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm confident in this. I'm not going to let fear win. So if you have something in your life that you've attached those emotions to, look at it and separate the emotions from the actual event. And then you can see that the event is just an event. It's a fact that X, Y, and Z happened and that you can change the story. You can change the story moving forward. Your past does not define your future. You define your future. So you can change your story and not let your past determine your future. You can decide how you want to move forward and how you're going to do it. And it takes some practice. It takes some work. You got to like constantly be thinking about it, constantly, you have positive affirmations where you're like, okay, I am strong. I am great. I am a good swimmer. And then you can have affirmations, which is basically ask it in a question because your brain is going to answer it. So if you're somebody that walks around and talks negatively and you're like, I'm so stupid, your brain's going to be like, yeah, you are because of this, this, and this. But if you're somebody that's like, why am I so smart? Your brain is going to answer that. And it's going to go, well, you're so smart because of all of these reasons. And your brain is going to tell you all those reasons and your brain's going to believe it. So if you want to change your story, change your thinking, and change the questions that you're asking yourself. So I can say, why am I such a good swimmer? And my brain is going to tell me why I'm such a good swimmer. Why can I do this triathlon and just rock it? And my brain's going to tell me that. So then I can go through those every single day, those positive things, and ask the positive questions, which is an affirmation, because you're doing your positive statement in a question form. And even if you haven't accomplished it yet, your brain is going to think you have and still answer the question positively and tell you why that happened. So ask it a positive question. Why am I so good at triathlons? And my brain's going to go, oh, because you practice and this and this and you know it and you train and you work at it. And it's going to tell myself what the answers are, and then my brain's going to believe it. And you have to train it. You have to do it often. You have to do it often. So you can do this in anything in your life. Like, why am I such a good learner? Why am I such a good reader? And your brain's going to tell you that, and it's going to start to believe it. And so then you'll be a good reader. You'll be a good learner. So you can take anything you're working on in your life and you can turn it around and create that positive affirmation and become what you want to be. Okay? So I want all of you guys to tell me one thing you're going to work on and have a positive affirmation and tell me how you're going to improve one thing and work on it. Work on it for 28 days. Work on it for a month. See how it changes your thinking and changes your story, because your story is what everyone